Hello, and thank you for tuning in to my channel. Now I'm at a restaurant called Buffalo's Wings and Things, and I'm here to talk about franchising. This is something that really crossed my mind in the last couple of days, because let's say, for instance, if you were already thinking about something like this, something to do coming over Asia, and you wanted to start a business, for instance. Obviously franchise is one of those things that would be an option, and so I just wanted to talk about this particular place as an example. That's good. That's really ice cold, really good. So clearly there are a lot of options out there nowadays. You can look for a franchise for any type of business, and chances are whatever type of business you want to get involved in, there will be a franchise for it. But let's talk about, say for instance, something like a food business. Let's talk about McDonald's, classic example. Yeah, you would have to pay for a franchising fee, and then you would have to, that franchising fee, all that does is give you the right to open an outlet for yourself for that particular business model. So all it is to have that right, if you like, that kind of like a licensing fee, if you like. However, that doesn't include all the costs involved. Now I'm going to tell you all the pitfalls, I'm going to tell you all the disadvantages there are, as well as advantages of looking into something like a franchise. Yeah, there are a lot of disadvantages, but I'm just gonna, by no means is this a deep dive, because this isn't advice, this isn't trying to push or promote anything. This is all to do with just getting the old creative juices flowing, right? And so all I'm saying is that if we do some comparisons and use, I'd say, this place as an example, I would say there is something to think about. And so when I looked into it just a little bit, there was a little bit there would be something to think about in that sense, because you're talking about a very reasonable franchise fee. Now reasonable is obviously a relative term, it's also a very subjective term, and therefore you can take that with a pinch of salt. But however, when you talk about in comparison to the huge outlets, if you talk about in comparison to your Jollibees and McDonald's, I'll put things into perspective for you. To have a franchise fee here, you're looking at 560,000 pesos for a franchise fee alone, which would be equal to £10,000, which therefore would be around 10,000 US dollars. That would be for the franchise fee only, not to do with setup costs or actually starting up your business or running your business. It's got nothing to do with that. That is basically your license to run an outlet, and that's assuming that you get through the application process. Now, so you talk about 10,000 for the franchising fee, which I'd say could be a red flag, but could be quite a decent thing, because every business at one stage, every big corporation, every big famous company was small to begin with, right? So therefore, if you look at small companies now that are trying to develop and grow, then it would not be out of the ordinary to understand the reason why for a, I'd say, slightly lower franchising fee and a lower setup cost. But bearing in mind that if you're looking to do a franchise, you would have to follow exactly the same model as everyone else. So when you're talking about cutting corners or saving costs like you would do with a like your own independent business, you wouldn't be able to do that with a franchise, because you would have to follow the exact same spec and renovations as the franchisor would be telling you to. Yes, so to put that in comparison, first of all, let me cover the franchise fee and the actual setup costs. I was only to be able to see on a cursory search that the setup costs you're probably looking at another 10 grand US dollars. When it comes to setup costs, I would say that is just a random number thrown in, because no way would 10 grand be enough to cover the cost of starting up your business, not even for the first month. I can tell you that now. After you talk about setting up the actual outlet itself, the capital that you have to put towards that, the salaries, the utilities, the stock and everything, it's not even going to come close. So as far as I'm concerned, that was just a random number thrown in there, and that you would need, not only would you need all your outlay costs and all your salaries and utilities, the rental if you're leasing out the premises that you are using, it would be 6 months to a year. I would say needs to be a year realistically of expenses you would need to look to cover by yourself. So that would be a lot more, but at least the franchise fee would be quite low in comparison to a lot of franchise fees out there. Now I say that is relative, because with an unknown brand you would be comparing it to the well-known establishments, well-known companies, businesses, franchises that charge a very, very high franchise fee. It's not unreasonable to assume that the reason why the franchise fee is lower and the standards for the application process is lower, because if a business is newly starting, and from what I've been told, this one is around 5 years, so it's relatively new and still growing, obviously, and looking to continue growing. And to put things in perspective, if you're looking to, say, pay for a Jollibee's franchise fee, now it's not clear on any websites I look at that whether this includes the outlay costs and the initial setup and all the rest of it. And the reason being is that, quite frankly, the franchise community want to keep their cards very close to their chest when it comes to any information to do with franchising, because obviously they don't want people copying their model. They don't want people even copying the way they do things and the style and the way which they do things. They just don't want that. And so you can understand that, right? Because they make money out of doing this sort of thing, as well as the actual business model themselves. Doing a franchising is in of itself a business. You're making money out of that. You're making franchising fees, licensing fees, on the very nature of the fact that you are that brand name and you are allowing people to use that name and that business model. You are also earning royalty fees every month, regardless of whether as an individual business and as an individual franchisee and outlet, whether you're making money or not. You got to pay a royalty fee, a percentage fee, a certain percentage every month to the franchisor, to that franchise. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Jollibee at a minimum 55 million pesos to even think about a franchise with Jollibee. Now, I can't find much information on that, even though I'm just doing a cursory search, and I'd imagine you can't do anyway. You really have to inquire as a potential franchisee to find out that sort of stuff, because nobody of the franchise model, of any of the franchise models, wants you to know this stuff, because they want you to sign up to it. They want you to find out about that stuff and release that information as you're going along through the process. So I highly suspect that is more to do with showing that you have that net worth, showing that you have that capital, that you have that in liquid cash. That's 55 million pesos is $1 million US. Yeah, so that's no small feat, right? That's not a small number, right? So I would suggest that is more to do with the requirement for having that liquid cash. And what is liquid cash? Having the money in your checking account, in your bank account, in a savings account, and showing that it's there ready to rock and roll, it's ready to go. So you pay a certain amount for a franchise fee, which probably isn't going to be that low. It's going to be pretty high for something like that. And you would need to also show that you have money in the bank ready to go as and when you need it. All right, now the other thing is, through the application process, is that they want to know that you're a suitable candidate, because it's not a case of writing a check and there you go, you're a franchisee. It doesn't work like that. It would need to be more of a case of you proving that you know about the business inside out, you know about the business model, you are a potential candidate for actually building up the brand name, not knocking it down or giving it a bad name, right, by knowing nothing about what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, so that's the other thing. So going back to putting things into perspective from the financial standpoint, is that $1 million, yeah, $1 million, a minimum requirement for a Jollibee in the Philippines. For McDonald's for minimum requirement is £100,000 for a McDonald's in the UK. That is a minimum requirement. So you're talking almost 10 times more for a franchise of Jollibee than it is to own a McDonald's outlet in the UK. Now, the other disadvantage, which I'll say, is that clearly when you say, for example, McDonald's, although they franchise their locations and you could apply to become a franchisee in any given location, the prime locations are always reserved for the actual franchise themselves, the franchisor, the corporation. McDonald's corporation owns the actual outlets in Bangkok, Tokyo, New York, London, Kuala Lumpur. They own the prime locations there. They own the locations in the capital. So you wouldn't even have the option of trying to obtain one of those locations. You would get the outskirts, you would get the provinces, you would get the towns that are outside of the capital. That's another disadvantage of becoming a franchisee. But clearly there are more, it's safe to assume there are a lot more franchisees than there are corporations that are owning the actual branches, the outlets. So for every 100 locations, you'd probably get a handful which are owned by the actual corporations themselves. So McDonald's corporations would only own a handful of the actual McDonald's outlets, compared to say 90 plus of the outlets which would be owned by franchisees. So clearly there is a market there. Clearly there is a market, a population of people that are running the franchises. So there is a plus side there. There is clearly work to be done there. And so let's make this one clear. Just because you own a franchise and it is already established in some form, you've got that brand name there, make no mistake about it, you are paying for that privilege. So nobody's doing you any favors. You are paying for that privilege of using that brand name. You're paying the franchise fee and you're paying for the royalty fees every single month. Yeah, so you're paying for that. So to say that, well, the advantages of owning a franchise would be you are already going into a proven business model. No, you're paying for that privilege. And if you're thinking that you're going to make a success straight away, that's really not going to be the case, because what makes the success is only going to be you. What makes the success is only going to be the effort that individual business owner puts into that business. Forget about the brand name. It's all the same. Business is a business. It's what you put into it, right? I know a lot of businesses. There are a lot of franchise businesses that have failed. I'm aware of a lot that have failed completely and closed up for business, and for one reason or the other, for whatever reason, yeah. And so it's not to be taken lightly. To go into a franchise business takes due diligence, just as much as you would do with any independent business that you want to do yourself, right? And so there are a lot of variables to consider. Obviously, what type of business model that you want to go into, what franchise you want to go into, the cost. So what I'm saying about something like this, Buffalo's Wings and Things, you are more looking at a slightly less franchise fee than a lot of others, but again, it's relative. It's relative, okay? And that you would be looking to build up your brand as well. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, just like the same with all the others, you would be, you would be you would have the ability with a lower franchise fee. You would have the ability. Thanks, Kim. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. You would have the ability to maybe put more towards the expenses, the outlay costs, and the expenses overall that you would need to really get you going for the first year. And so it takes just as much due diligence as any other business that you would look to run. You need to look at your location, the demographics. You would need to see that, would you have the kind of people that would be interested in coming to your location and spending money there, right? And so there are a lot of things to consider, but by no means just because a franchise fee appears to be lower. You got to look at in a relative sense as well. Is it new? Is it quite compared to, say, the bigger brands? Is it like a less known brand? And there are plenty of franchises out there which you'll never have heard of, and so of course their franchise fees would be lower in comparison, relatively speaking. And also the standards for the application process, like this one here, Buffalo's, doesn't, as far as one of the website goes, there is no application process. And so you would not look to, you would look into it more as to the reasons why. But when a company is relatively new, first few years in, it's understandable. Every company has been there. Every company, no corporation, company or brand has started off big. They've all started off where they've started off, and so they've all been there at some point, just that now they have made it and they are huge, they are big, they're a big brand name. And it's the same with every small company starting up. Now, it could take off, it might not, yeah, but if you wanted to consider being part of anything, what you can't forget is that it's not about the brand name, it's not about the franchise or how famous the franchise is. As I say, I know plenty of famous franchises that have failed, and so therefore It's what you put into it. It's the effort and the work that you put into it that really makes it. It's you that makes the money. It's not the brand name that makes you money. Also, risk tolerance comes into it a lot. Clearly, no one should be risking anything that they can't afford. Do you want to be hands-on? I mean, some franchises require you to be hands-on, which is obviously not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want to be a silent stroke sleeping investor because you've got other things on your plate also, then it can make it quite difficult for those businesses involved. But I think something like this, there wouldn't be a problem in being just an investor and employing staff and managers to run your business. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not in particular I want to talk about this particular business model, this particular franchise. This is an example, and because I happen to look it up, is it a franchise? Because I've been to quite a few of the outlets. Clearly I've been here quite regularly. Come here for dinner. I've even been here for lunch a few times to this particular outlet, and I've been to the one in Ayala Malls in Makati. I've been there to try their wings. So their chicken wings, they are actually more known for their chicken wings. The flavors I'll show you afterwards. We'll go inside and I'll show you around this particular outlet, and I'll show you the wings so they got like hot wings. They go from mild to like hot to really hot, and so you could give yourself a little spicy wings challenge if you like as well here. Although they used to do that, but they don't have the supply for the spicy, the more spicier wings, the spiciest wings. They got the top three. The top two, they don't have the ingredients for it because they actually source their ingredients from the US. So this place is US inspired. I would say US and Mexican inspired. It's Mexican food. You know, you got chicken wings, you got fries, you got your tortilla chips, you got your your nachos, your quesadillas, you got your Mexican food. So it's all American stroke Mexican inspired, although it's not an American company. It's a local Filipino brand. This is a local brand and built in the Philippines. However, it's US inspired, and they source their ingredients from the US. They actually source their ingredients from the US, right? So the supply isn't there, and therefore they are not currently doing the two hottest wings. What I want to do, I was actually waiting for the place to be a little bit more empty so I can show around. But I'm going to do that anyway afterwards, and just having a look around because it's actually quite a nice little setup. You know, it's quite trendy. Well, the way as I see it. But yeah, something like this would be, say, a bit more affordable relative to obviously your big brands out there. And obviously coming to the Philippines in particular, you know, even if you were to consider something like this to start up, you can reduce your risk by having partners involved. In any franchise, you can also have partners. You can have shareholders, you can have partners, and so therefore you can reduce your risk by having other people putting a share of capital, whether they're involved or not. Or it's obviously even better if they can put in a share and put in involvement as well, so it frees up your time to do other things and more things as well, maybe for the business or for other things, right? So you don't have to be hands-on. I would say for something like this, it's a good example to use, because at the moment, at this time, the franchise fee is relatively low in comparison, and there are quite a few outlets out there. There are quite a few branches out there. I've been to the one in the Isle of Malls in Makati, and I went to try the Armageddon wings there, which is supposed to be the third spiciest. And you know, the really nice chicken wings here, and the quesadillas and the tortilla, the nachos, and that, like, really nice. Yeah, I just, this is one of the places I come to for my Mexican, you know. And so yeah, I'm gonna actually show you around with my beer. I'm gonna leave my bag out here, it should be okay. So just gonna go in and walk around with my beer. Kim, I'm gonna go upstairs as well, just have a look around. Just have a, yeah. And so these are the wings, and the really popular one is the, actually it's not even here, is it? The really popular one is the salted egg. So I don't know why it's not here, but obviously you've got the different flavors, and the really hot ones start with the Firehouse Classic. Then you've got the Nuclear. So these are the spicy ones. You've got the Firehouse Classic, the Nuclear, the Armageddon, which I've had a couple of times here, the K-Bomb, and the Ultimate Wing Sanity. So yeah, here it is. Those are the chicken wings here, and up here is the menu. So as you can see, there's actually a lot on the menu, and quite a few nice desserts as well. So I've got spaghetti, the chili and cheese nachos are delicious. The chicken quesadilla, really nice. I've had that a few times here. Those at the top there are the salted egg chicken wings. Those are your sodas. Bacon pasta, chicken quesadilla, beef burritos, the bacon and cheese fries. They're really good. They're really good. So I'll take you upstairs, and you can see from the decor here, very much US inspired. You got a picture of Citibank there, and that's New York, right? So now, obviously, this place is called Buffalo's, right? And anyone who can recognize that, so for all you that are into the New York Stock Exchange, the stock market in the US, you will recognize that bull. That is the bull of Wall Street. That's the bull of Wall Street. So yeah, here we are. This is upstairs. So this is not actually open to, you know, to actually dine here. This is really more mainly booked for private functions, and they have a huge TV there, but it's a comfortable place to eat. So about, I think, I'd say from what I can count, it's 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, about 22 covers downstairs, and more or less the same upstairs. So it's a decent size, because you don't want it like too huge unless you're out in like in the main sort of city centre, or if you're based in, like, say, a shopping centre, something like that. But the one I went to in Ayala Malls in McCarty, that's really small, because that's in the shopping mall, and that only has like one level, whereas this one's got 2 floors. Though upstairs is more used as a for function purposes, as a function room for parties and, you know, meetings and things like that. So they're not really using the upstairs like for normal usage, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I was hoping the manager was here today. Let's have a nice little conversation with him for the video, but hey ho, he's not here today. But anyway, yeah, this is it's a decent hangout. Now, clearly you can't tell from any business, you know, any food outlet that you go to, clearly you can't tell by just seeing lots of customers. I mean, you could see a lot of customers at any given time. You just happen to be walking past it at the time there happens to be loads of people, and then just because every time you walk past that restaurant and you see loads of people, doesn't mean that they're making money, doesn't mean that they're making any money, doesn't mean they're in profit or anything like that. You have to look at balance sheets for that. Like I say, this conversation isn't about any details or any type of deep dive whatsoever, because it's not a suggestion. It's not a suggestion. It's not anything. It's just to get the creative juices flowing, as I say. And I would say, yeah, something like this, if I was to consider, you know, you look for something smaller than trying to, you would need so much nowadays to go for one of the bigger brands. You'd need so much capital, and so if you're looking, this is kind of like your opportunity, if you like. If you're going for a smaller brand, your opportunity to help make it grow, right? What I see is that, because I'm coming in all the time, and what I see is there's people here, but whether there's people or not, they're using Grab services as well, so it can be quite misleading. Like, you might say, oh well, this place is empty, there's no one here, like I'm the only one here. Well, they got a lot, like they got plenty of Grab deliveries on the go, and so, you know, it's always misleading, you know, seeing people, because You don't know what those people are ordering. Are they ordering a lot of food? Are they ordering, not so much? You don't know where the profitability line starts as well for any given business. Like I say, it's about looking at the balance sheets. It's about looking at the specific numbers. If you really want to know, if you really want to search into things, that's what you got to do. And so it's not good enough that you walk past a restaurant and see it busy every day. It's not good enough. It really isn't. That doesn't cut it. You really do need to look at the numbers and see what the profitability are, what the margins are. And for any business to begin with, to start with, you're losing money from the start. That's what a business is. You are losing money from the very outset. Then what you're looking to do after possibly a year or two down the line, what your goal is, what your target is to be looking to break even, and to be doing that for a little while. And after that, hopefully making a little bit of money, earning your own salary, and then after that just keep on going, and hopefully you'll make more and more money and more profits, and it will be a worthwhile venture. So there are clearly, I would say there are a lot more disadvantages to advantages in starting up a franchise. However, clearly people are making it work. There are more franchisees than there are the actual corporations themselves running outlets out there. So clearly the evidence shows that franchisees are making it happen. Franchisees are making it work. It's to what extent they are making it work. They are making the business work, and what the profitability is. But there are more risks than there are benefits. But then you're taking those risks to have a potential, to gradually reduce those risks. Like the longer you're in business, the more of a success you're making that business. Slowly in time, you're reducing those risks. Do you know what I mean? Because I would say for the most part, those risks that I'm talking about are financial risks. Risks to your capital, risks to you as an investor. Those are the risks that I'm talking about. So when I talk about risks, as you're going along and you're slowly growing the business and making it work, and it's evident at some point that you're making money rather than losing money, then you're slowly reducing those risks, right? That's great. That's great. All right. So thanks, Kim. So let me show you my meal for today. So that is the garlic parmesan. It's quite nice here. They are actually going to, so if I just say with this mall here, it's going to be taken over by Ayala, the developer is called Ayala Lands, and Ayala Lands is actually the largest developer in the Philippines. They're the largest property developer in the country. They're massive. They're just, they build all sorts of, I believe actually they built a lot of the development in Makati there. So like the modern malls and certainly the Ayala malls, they are obviously developed by Ayala. The owners are Ayala Land, right? But also a lot of the high-rise buildings there, and a lot of the parts of Makati was actually built and developed by Ayala Lands. So they're absolutely massive. I believe SMDC are the second largest developer here in the Philippines, and the third is Mega World. Mega World, I believe they developed Eastwood here in Quezon City. I believe that to be the case. And they certainly have a lot of developments, not just condos, but the so-called townships. And the townships are not only the residential condos, but also commercial buildings and shopping malls as well, and the actual roads all surrounding, like the actual, you know, they call it township, and the actual town itself, they actually are involved in building. So I think Eastwood was like a 10-year project for them. Like, it took them 10 years. I mean, Eastwood is pretty small in, like, on the scale of things within this city, right, Quezon City. But in actual fact, like, if you think that, like, the whole township itself, Eastwood itself, was built by that one developer, that's pretty impressive, right? So not only do they build residential condos, they also build malls, as well as the roads surrounding it and the actual townships themselves. So residentially, commercially as well, they develop, which is why their big projects are like the 10-year projects. I know that there is a project going on right now in Cavite, which is like kind of like, it's like the outskirts of Manila, and there is a place next to it called Tagaytay, and they have a lot of new developments there for like tourism and things like that. And so there's a lot of developments going on around there right now, and a lot of like transport, like when I say transport links, like I know there's like a big bridge being built right now between Cavite and going and having like a lot quicker access, like a skyway or an expressway going into central Manila. Yeah, I mean, these are the sort of projects that, you know, food for thought, right? Because if you look into the places that are already fully developed and already at a high price, do you necessarily want to be investing in something that is already, you know, at a very, very steep price? Yes, it could go higher, but you know, you might be waiting a very, very long time for that. Whereas somewhere developing, providing that is that the potential for it to be there and for it to actually transpire to be the case, then you're looking at between 5 to 10 years investment, which is by definition a proper investment. You know, you don't buy something hoping that it's going to appreciate. Any kind of asset, you're not looking for it to appreciate within like 6 months, a year, or whatever, right? It may well happen that way, but through luck. But you know, if you're looking for a real investment, you have to be patient. You have to do your due diligence. You have to really, quite frankly, hold your balls, you know, and be in it for the ride. It being that roller coaster ride, right? You know, and really hold on to your sacks, right? in order to come out the other end with some healthy profits, right? Anyway, let's try these wings. It's like I'm about to commit a murder or something, isn't it, putting on this glove? Well, if it's as nice as, if these chicken wings is as nice as I think they're gonna be, I'm gonna murder these chicken wings. Really tasty. You can actually choose between chicken wings with bones or boneless. Really tasty. Really hits the spot. Yeah. So far, I've had the Armageddon. The first few times because I was like so set on having like spicy wings, and then like after that I was like kind of like, oh, just open your mind up to like other flavour of chicken wings, you know what I mean? And so I started going for the salted egg, which is just fantastic. Apparently it's like the best seller here, the salted egg chicken wings. So I've tried the Armageddon wings, which is like the third spiciest. The first two aren't available. The first two spiciest aren't available. And now I've tried these, because obviously I've had other things on the menu as well, the chicken quesadilla, the nachos, those cheese and bacon like potatoes, like fries, but like they're really sort of like big potatoes. I tell you what, I'm going to try out the dessert to let you know what I think about it, because I haven't tried the desserts here yet. But here you've got such a variety of flavours, and you're not messing around with inventory. So say for instance, if you've got different meats, because you've got so much on the menu, you want to be avoiding that, because if you don't sell, like say like you got chicken, fish, beef or whatever, and you're not selling the fish dishes, right, and you're only selling chicken, well then clearly you have an inventory overflow there. You're top heavy on inventory. So if you just have one particular thing that just sells, which is the chicken, but all you're doing is you're making it to order based on what flavour it is, well, you're never going to have a problem with the inventory because you're only selling chicken. Do you know what I mean? If you have like a large menu, you might sell one thing more than the other, which makes you, which could you could be creating an excess of inventory there, especially when it comes to food, because food has expiry times, right? There's a very small window of opportunity to actually get that sold, yeah, for it to remain fresh. And so you have to really manage your inventory well when it comes to food in the restaurant business. So I mean, yeah, as far as the food goes, obviously if you own a franchise yourself, you get all the recipes, you'd be following exactly, it would just taste, all your food would taste exactly the same as it does in existing outlets. Tell you what, some good tasty chicken wings going on here at Buffalo's. The cheesecake ice cream, let's give it a run. I know I'm gonna like the ice cream, right? That goes without saying. That's not ice cream though, it tastes like whipped cream. Oh, the part that I thought was the cake, that whole thing is ice cream. Yeah. Like the whipped cream, I don't like whipped cream. I thought it was ice cream, which is actually the whipped cream. And the actual, I thought, because it's called cheesecake, like the colour of it, I thought it was a cake, but it's not. It's the actual ice cream. So I don't really care what flavour it is if it's ice cream. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it's fine, like any other regular ice cream. It's good. Anyway, got to return some calls, and yeah, I'll catch you for the next installment.